Hi, welcome to another episode of Webcam Sessions. This week we're going to be talking about chord variations and how important it is to position your chords in different ways to create different sounds. And we're going to use a little bit of the song I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty to do this. So to start here, we're going to learn the chords that are used in the main verse, which is E minor, D, and G. And the way that we typically would play an E minor would be something like this, 0, 4, 3, 2, which will be our ring finger here at the 4th fret of the C string, our middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string, and our index finger here at the 2nd fret of the A. Now, if I play through all four, it sounds something like that. Really cool chord. Now, the next chord that's played in this song is a D chord, and we're going to work on two ways to play the D. The first way we're going to play it is the pretty typical one, using these three fingers, taking our index finger, placing on the 2nd fret of the G, middle stacking on the 2nd fret of the C, and ring on the 2nd fret of the E. You'll notice it's a pretty tight fit getting all three of those fingers in there, but that's how people typically will play this chord. Now the way that I really like to, and it takes some practice to get this, is using just the index finger. What I actually like to do is bar across, but then lift the bar off, making sure that the point where that bend is created is right before the A string. So I'm applying pressure on the G, C, and E strings while holding it off the A. Now a lot of people will try to do this and think, there's no way my finger is going to bend like that, right? But it's just like yoga for your fingers, basically, right? Just because I can't touch my toes right now doesn't mean I'm physically unable to. It just means I'm out of shape and can't do it right now, right? And no matter how hard I try to touch my toes right now at this moment, I'm not going to do it without hurting myself. But after maybe a few weeks or months of stretching consistently, I'll be able to do it. Same sort of thing with this finger concept. Even though you might not be able to get it off that A string right away, working on it will allow you to. When I first started trying it, I couldn't quite get it, but now it's my preferred way of playing. So that D chord, we can play either of these ways. And then the last chord is a G chord, which index finger on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger on the 3rd fret of the E, and middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A, right? And if I play these chords, and I'm just going to use my thumb and strum through each one, strum through the E minor, and then the D, and then the G. Sounds nice, right? But to create the sound that this song has for sort of the melody, we're going to be working on playing the won't back down lines of this song. And when it starts, it doesn't go, well, I won't back down. It actually starts higher. The melody starts up here. Won't back down. Now the problem is the way that we're playing the chords down here have a different set of melody notes. Those melody notes are created by whatever note we stop on, whatever the last one that is played is. So in this case, it's this note right here, the 2nd fret of the A string, which is a B note. And then the D chord, it's the open A string, which is an A note. And then with the G chord, it's another B note. But again, the melody that we want goes E, D, B. So what we want to do is identify what notes are in these chords so that we can move them. When we look at this E minor chord, let's go ahead and take a look at the notes we're fretting. The 4th fret on the C string is an E note. The 3rd fret on the E string is a G note. And the 2nd fret on the A string is a B note. Those three notes, E, G, and B, create what's called an E minor chord. For now, let's go ahead and ignore the G string and just use those three. Well, if I want to play this chord up higher, what I can do is rearrange these notes up the fretboard. So instead of playing my B note here, I'm going to move up and play my E note here, because that's the melody note that I want. Now, the G note that's down here, I need to move up to something else. Well, I just removed my B note, so what if I add the B note on my E string now? So I've got my E note and my B note. So the note that's now missing, it's kind of like some Sudoku puzzle or something, right? We had E, G, B, now we have E and B, so we still need the G, and that can fall right here on the 7th fret of the C string. So now if I take my index finger barred across the 7th fret on the C, E, and A, and just play those three strings, that is also an E minor chord. In every way the same down here. Just now the notes are positioned in a different order. Now my lowest note, instead of being an E, is a G note. My highest note, instead of being a B, It's now an E note. So it creates a different identity for the chord, even though the chord's still the same chord. And that's what's going to create that sound that we need for our melody, because when the first won't back down happens in the song, it's high going to low, and it's high starting with this note. So that's the first chord that we want to play. Won't. Now the next thing is the D chord, right? Let's go ahead and look at these notes again, and let's ignore the G string again. Just for the sake of this, we can get everything that we need on our C, E, and A for now. So we're going to look at the C string, which is a D note, the E string, which is an F sharp, and the A string, which is an A. D, F sharp, and A create a D major chord. So let's do the same sort of exercise now. Let's try to move that A note up to a D note. Let's move the F sharp up to an A note, and the D note up to an F sharp note, because that's the only one that's missing. So each one of them pivots to a new place. And if we put that all together, we'll have our middle finger here on the 6th fret of the C string, with our index finger barred over the E and the A strings on the 5th fret. Again, using my thumb, I'm just playing the C, E, and A strings for now. Pretty cool, right? When you listen, it's still a D chord, just now with that higher pitch and that melody up here, right? So now, if I use these two new chords for the E minor and the D, but then I play the normal G that we started with, I can actually get the correct sound for that melody. So it goes no, I won't back down, right? Pretty cool. And just to really get it correct, we got to learn the no, I, which is the no, I won't back down. And the way we play that is the 2nd fret on the A string, then the 5th fret on the A string, and then we play what we just learned. So no, I won't back down. Pretty cool, right? Now, as we're playing this, you can hear that the chords give us that rich harmony, but it allows our melody note, which is the one that we're stopping on, to be correct for the song, right? Now, the next section of the song is, I believe, Gonna Stand My Ground. I might have those lyrics mixed up. There's a lot of really cool different instances of them. I'm not much of a lyricist, but the point is, it doesn't repeat this, right? It goes, but it doesn't do it again to create that sound, right? What it does is it plays lower chords, lower melody. The melody now goes. So what's great about that is that first melody note, that B note, we needed an E minor chord with a B note, and that's how we were playing the E minor before. So this E minor works great for this second one. So that's stand, and then on my, it's going to do the D chord with an A note, which is the way that we learned it before. Works out really nicely, right? Because that A note is our melody, and the D chord ending on it creates that sound. But the tricky thing now is the next melody note is a G note. And when we play our G chord, if I were to strum through as we've been doing, my melody note's going to be that B note on the A string. So sometimes, to get a fuller sound, we play less. And this is a great instance of that, where I'm going to actually pluck only the C and the E strings. Right? So I'm only going to play the C and the E strings, which is just a D note and a G note. Now that's not a full G chord. There's no B note anymore, right? But that's okay, because the melody that I'm trying to play and finish on and make the most prominent is that G note. So I'm only playing those two strings, and even though that's not fully a G chord, it creates the sound that we're looking for to get that melody, right? So what that looks like is, now if we want to get the I will, for I will stand my ground, it's going to be a G note followed by an A note. So I will stand my ground. Pretty cool, right? Now there's some subjectiveness that you can have with some of these melody notes. Like when you do I will stand my ground, what if you don't hear it going with that A note to the G? What if you hear it going to the F sharp to the G? Well, the way that I can play that D chord, I can instead stop on that F sharp note if I want, going through the G, C, and E strings this time, but stopping at that F sharp to create that sound, which is pretty cool, right? So again, it just allows you to play a little bit within the voicings. We sometimes will switch completely, but sometimes we'll play within the way that we've got the chord fretted and pick which note we want to end on to create our sense of a melody. So now what's so great about this, and you can see with the tab right here, is if I want to play the first part of the song, it'll look and sound something like this. Pretty great, right? Now, if you want to learn this whole song, I actually did a video tutorial of it, and you can check out the link down below. I made this on my channel, so feel free to check that out. It goes through the entire song, but some of the concepts that were taught here are really important for if you're ever wanting to work on your own chord melodies or these sort of concepts. I hope to be spending more time on chord melody, which is basically what we did today, and kind of doing a chord melody, concept webcam sessions here pretty soon. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Webcam Sessions.